Let's get started with these seventh chords. Now, in music, you're going to find two different kinds of seventh chords. The ones that we're talking about are what we call dominant seventh. They have a lowered seventh note in the particular scale that they're built from. We also have what we call major sevenths, and that's where you take the seventh note of a major scale and you leave it as is. And that means that your seventh note is a half step to the octave of that note. If you have a dominant seventh, then the seventh note is a whole step, or we lower it. And you found that out in the video previous to this, how this works. So just to kind of shed some light on it so you don't get confused what the two different kinds are and why we're just teaching this one kind. I love to use major seventh chords too. They're very beautiful to use. They have a different type of tonality. But for our purposes right now, we're going to do dominant seventh chords. So here are some chord charts, diagrams, and I like these because they show the name of the notes, what we're playing. So if we have an A chord, A scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, the note right before A is a G. And in an A major scale, we have three sharps, F sharp, C sharp, and G sharp. But because we're a dominant seventh, it's going to be a G natural because we're going to take that sharp and lower it a half step. Now, an easy way to play this is, remember how sometimes we play our A chord like this, but I've showed you that I like to play mine like this because it works really good for the D and the E, right? So now for me, my A7 chord, all I'm going to do is lift my first finger up. And there's a reason why we do it this way instead of like 1 and 3 is because when we're switching chords, it makes it a lot easier. So for example, here's our A7, and the third chord on the line here is a D7. So then all you have to do is slide down and put your first finger. There's your D7. Okay. So, but anyway, there's your A7 chord. Now let's take a look at the E7. Now, E scale is E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And if you notice, the D is also, in the E scale, the D is going to be a sharp, but here it would be a natural because they're going to lower it a half step. Now, if we were to put a note or a dot right here with finger 3, you would see that that would be an E chord, and we just have a regular E chord. And again, all we're going to do is take off this third finger, and now we have an E7. So that D in there is that seventh note. Otherwise, it would be an E, which makes it an E chord, right? And there we go. Now let's take a look at the D chord. Now the D chord we know like this, and I like to say it's the upside down triangle, right? So now, let me grab my pen again. So if you were to play a D chord, you would just have your finger right here on the third fret of the second string. Now it's almost like you're going to put a mirror right here and you're going to flip it upside down. So I like to call the D7 chord the upside down triangle, or maybe it's even the right side triangle compared to the upside down triangle that you see in a D chord. Now the D scale is D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and the second to the last note on a D scale is actually a C sharp, but because we need to lower it a half step, it's going to be a C natural. So that one sounds like this. Again, you're only playing 4 strings. Okay, so now if this is a C, and if I take my first finger and I slide it up so we're all inside that second fret, okay, if I were to do that, I'm going to move my guitar a little bit so you can see that. If I was going to move it into the second fret, it would actually make it into a D with a C sharp, and that's a D with a major 7 on top. Kind of a cool sound, right? I like major 7 chords, but right now we're using dominant 7. And it's a little more bluesy, a little more jazzy sounding. Okay, just to show you those two different sounds on that. All right, so let's practice going between A7 and use fingers 2 and 3 here. Don't use 1 and 3 like maybe you play your A chord. Use 2 and 3. A7, Now at E7. And now slide your first finger down, put these two down here. You got a right side up triangle, D7. And it's 4 strings. And there you go. There's our first 3 dominant 7 chords. Keep practicing these, get used to them, and notice how they're so similar to your major chords that it's easy to make that transition. Keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next video.